If you like aggressive tribal decks, then this is the perfect deck for you. Skyfire Kirin is savage, allowing us to steal opponents' creatures constantly, and after we gain control of them, we'll sacrifice them to various things to deal even more damage. There are 25 spirits and arcanes in the deck, so Skyfire Kirin is just gonna trigger constantly. Now, let's see the spirits that fuel the deck. We've got Shinnen of Fury's Fire. It's got haste, and you can channel it to give something else haste. Glitterfang and Oni of Wild Places. They also both have haste, and at the beginning of your end step or upkeep, you return Glitterfang to his owner's hand, or you return a red creature you control to his owner's hand in the case of Oni of Wild Places. So that when you return it to your hand, you can cast it again, and boom, Skyfire Kirin triggers once again. Furnace Spirit and Everflame Eidolon. Both of them just kind of buff themselves up. You know, they both kind of got fire breathing. Eidolon can give something else, can just bestow something else, and it gives a creature the same ability. It's really cool. Blade Main Baku. Whenever you cast a spirit or arcane, you put a key counter on it, and then you can remove X key counters from it. For each counter removed, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Shimatsu the Bloodcloaked and Ugin's Conjurant. Now, these are both spirits again, and you can sacrifice any number of permanents in the case of Shimatsu, and it enters with that many counters on it. Ugin's Conjurant also enters with X +1/+1 counters on it, and if damage is dealt, you just remove that many counters and prevent the damage. Taurean Mauler. Now, of course, this is a changeling, so it's also a spirit, so whenever an opponent casts a spell, you can put a +1/+1 counter on it. Malignus. This one's a bad mother. Malignus's power and toughness are each equal to half the highest life total among your opponents, rounded up, and damage that will be dealt to it can't be prevented, so you're just going to be dealing tons of damage, and yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be real good. Sorcerer's Broom. So whenever you sack a permanent, you can pay to make a copy of it, and now you've got a whole bunch of little spirit brooms running around. It's just like Fantasia over here. Manichi, the Fevered Dream. So you can use its ability to switch each creature's power and toughness until end of turn, and that could be very useful just wiping out wall decks. Now I've got some spirit bonuses. Since this is a spirit tribal deck, we'll need a bit of help creating larger spirits to put pressure on our opponents. Urza's Incubator and Herald's Horn both make certain creature types cost less, and Herald's Horn kind of helps you sift through the top of your library for those creatures. And in this case, that creature type is a spirit. Metallic Mimic. This enters probably as a spirit, and then each creature you control that's a spirit enters with additional counter on it. Vanquisher's Banner. Same thing, but it's an anthem type effect. Those creatures get +1/+1, and then you draw a card whenever you cast one of those creature types. Hamura, Human Ascendant. It can't block, and when it dies, you flip it. And when it gets flipped, creatures you control get 2/2 and have flying, and they get fire breathing. Hamura is super, super cool. Gaining control. So going with the theme of this deck by stealing other people's creatures, well, if we somehow can't trigger Skyfire Kirin's ability due to the lack of spirits or arcanes, these will help rip precious creatures away from our opponents. Blind with Anger and Song Mad Treachery. Just gain control of something, and then it gains haste on turn. And Blind with Anger is an arcane, and Song Mad Treachery doubles as a land. Cunning Bandit. So whenever you cast a spirit or arcane, you can put a key counter on it. At the beginning of your end step, if there are 2 or more key counters on it, you may flip it. And now once flipped, you can remove a key counter to gain control of a creature until end of turn. Super, super wild. Insurrection, the best one. Untap all creatures and gain control of them, and then they gain haste. So everything becomes yours, and then it's probably GG from there. More damage. Now damage comes in all shapes and sizes, and these just help bring the pain. Blazing Shoal, another arcane. You may exile a red card with mana value X from your hand rather than paying the spell's mana cost, and that target creature that you target will get +X/+0 until end of turn. Yeah, extra bonuses every time you do anything in this deck, really. Ghostlit Raider. You can deal 2 damage to target creature, or you can channel it to do 4 damage to target creature. It's pretty neat. Kazuul's Fury. So as an additional cost to cast a spell, you sack a creature, and then it deals damage equal to the sacked creatures to any target. Now, this is basically just a fling, but it also doubles as a land, so it's just a really cool way to utilize the space in your deck. Scorched Rusalka. You can pay a red, sack a creature, and then deals damage to a player or planeswalker. Just straightforward dealing damage. Goblin Bombardment. This one's even more straightforward. You sack a creature, it deals 1 damage to any target, and you just at this point, once we gain control of something, we'll just sack it to deal more damage. It's pretty cutthroat, pretty awesome. Myojin of Roaring Blades. It enters with an indestructible counter on it if you cast it from your hand. Now you can remove that counter to deal 7 damage to each of up to 3 targets. That's so much damage. Gosh, these guys are so cool. I love them. Card advantage. Always staying ahead of our opponents is key, especially for a red deck. So we gotta go fast and make rash decisions. Sensei's Divining Top, look at the top 3, put them back in any order, and then you can just draw a card and then put it on top of your library. This is like the best card draw in like any deck. Just about, just don't take my word for it though. Skull Clamp, equip it to something small that dies, and then you draw 2 cards. Now, okay, just hear me out. Cast a spirit spell, gain control of a 1/1 that your opponents control, equip Skull Clamp, boom, you got 2 cards, and they have 1 less creature. It's a win-win. Gamble is super goofy, but you search your library for a card, put it in your hand, and then you discard a card at random. But that's a pretty small price to pay, I feel like, for just any card for 1 mana. Wheel of Fortune. Each player discards their hand and draws 7 cards. Now, this never makes anybody angry ever. It's a great card draw, though. March of Reckless Joy. So you can exile any number of red cards in your hand, and then it costs less for each card exiled this way. And then this is basically impulse draw. You can exile top X cards of your library, and then you can play up to 2 of those cards until your next turn. It's kind of a quick, fast card usage. Layla the Blade Reforged, another spirit. With haste, whenever it attacks you, you do the whole exile the thing, and you can play that card this turn. And whenever one or more cards are put into exile from your library or graveyard, you put a counter on her. How cool is that? Jessica's Will and Atushi, the Blazing Sky. Now these ones kind of double as like a mana type thing, but also a card draw type thing. So each of them kind of adds red or creates treasures, and then you can also exile cards from the top of your library and you can play them this turn. These are just super good, just any type of advantage, whether it be mana or card. It's awesome. Plus that sushi is a spirit. Removal. Almost everything in this section also helps out our commander's ability, and I'm very impressed with how well this was thought through. Good job, guys. I'm so impressed. Yuki Onna and Hearth Kami. When Yuki Onna enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact, right? And then when you cast a spirit or arcane, you return it to your hand. And boom, you can do it again. Boom, and there's just recursion with Skyfire Kirin. That's amazing. And then Hearth Kami, you can sack it to destroy an artifact with mana value X. It's just great artifact removal in a spirit deck like this. Pain Kami, you can sacrifice it to deal X damage to target creature. That's great creature removal with another spirit. Erratic Portal, you can pay 1, tap it, and return a creature to his owner's hand unless his controller pays 1. So you could just be annoying and just make sure they're always tapping their lands or returning creatures to people's hands. I mean, it's not that powerful, but if you're doing it over and over again, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty funny. Earthquake, Jawara, the Earth of Flame, and Ryusei, the Falling Star. Each of them deals X damage to each creature without flying. And, there's a channel ability there with the Earth of Flame, and then it deals X damage to each creature without flying. And the Ryusei dies, deals 5 damage. This is great. And then Earthquake also deals that damage to each player. So just great little board wipes there. Super fun. Tybalt's Trickery. Oh boy. Counter target spell, and then you just choose something at random, and then you flip something else. There's a lot of words, but if you don't know what this is, look it up and look more in depth. It's a really good card. Plus it's a counter spell in red. Chaos Warp and Wild Magic Surge. These are basically the same thing. Chaos Warp shuffles something into an opponent's library, and Wild Magic Surge destroys a permanent they control, but they kind of flip through the top and then find something that's a permanent and they put it on the battlefield. It's, both very similar. Or Gorger, this is nasty. Whenever you cast a spirit or arcane, you destroy target non-basic land. Oh boy, that's gonna trigger a lot, and that's not gonna be fun for anybody except for Skyfire Kirin. So play more basics is what I'm saying. Extras, sacrificing others' creatures and protecting our own and getting extra value out of this deck. Oh my. What's better than that? Now we got Lightning Greaves, of course. Protect Skyfire Kirin at all costs because it's going to be targeted. Altar of Dementia, sack a creature and a player mills equal to the creature's power. Again, another sack outlet for the creatures we steal. Spawning Pit, another sack outlet, and then you can create 2/2 spawns with its charge counters. Sentinel Flute, search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it in your hand and then shuffle. That's incredible value. Always pay for whatever you need. Glaring Spotlight, creatures opponents control with hexproof can be the targets of spells and abilities you control as if they didn't have hexproof, and you can sack it to give all your creatures hexproof and unblockable. This is a very underutilized card in Commander, and I'm very surprised, and I've got one and I never put it in the deck, and I'm very sad with myself because it's such a great card. Sunbird's Invocation, this is just great. Whenever you cast a spell from your hand, you basically put something from among those cards without paying its mana cost, and then you put the rest on the bottom. It's just over and over and over again. You're getting more spirits and arcanes, and you're just stealing, and sacrificing over and over and over again. Underworld Breach. Now, this gives all your creatures in your graveyard escape, and so we can just keep reusing our spirits. What a great card, especially here in this deck. Ramp. Okay, now if you need ramp options, check out my video on red ramp spells and how you can add to your very own mono red deck. That being said, I'll highlight a couple in this deck that are extremely important. First, we have Desperate Ritual. This is an arcane spell, so you literally can't make this deck without it. So make sure it's in there. You just add red, and it's got splice onto arcane, so you can just reuse it just a few times. Ashnod's Altar and Phyrexian Altar are also in here. Other sack outlets, and they also add mana. So going along with gain control, sacrifice them. These two will seriously be missed if you don't add them. They're a bit pricier, but they're very well worth it in this deck. If you want an alternate version, here are some cards you can swap out, and you can swap for these certain cards. Take Blazing Shoal, Blind with Anger, Furnace Spirit, March of Reckless Joy, and Sunbird's Invocation. You swap those for Adamaro, First to Desire, Kami of Fire's Roar, Mana Echoes, Simian Spirit Guide, and Tempered in Solitude. Now, each of these is probably a little bit more aggressive with the mana side, so if you want to do that in this version, please do that. This is just another option that you can do. Adamaro, First to Desire's power and toughness are each equal number of cards in the hand of the opponent with the most cards. So just like a usually pretty big beefy spirit here. Kami of Fire's Roar, whenever you cast a spirit or arcane, target creature can't block this turn, so you can always get your spirits through. Mana Echoes, so whenever a creature enters, you can add an amount of colorless equal to the number of creatures you control that share a creature type with it. So spirit, I gain mana, spirit, I gain mana, spirit, I gain mana, you know, it's really good card. Simian Spirit Guide is you can exile it from your hand and you add red, so it's just basically a free red mana whenever you want. And Tempered in Solitude makes it so whenever a creature you control attacks alone, you exile the top card of your library and then you can play it this turn. So it's just extra impulse draw for your deck because you're just going to be slinging spirit spells all over the place. Okay, so thank you so much again, Senshiworld and Moonvillage, for providing this deck. I always love seeing how well you all synergize with everything. So much deck building talent. I'm very jealous of you guys, and you guys are so awesome. I'm so grateful for your support. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you next week for your weekly dose of magic.